Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple podcast. We're doing a special episode this week. We're going to be doing our top 10 albums of 2021. So let's start with Floyd. What's your number 10?
My number 10. So I thought I will add in one mainstream-ish band, which I know you guys both don't like. My number 10 is Gojira, Fortitude. No, okay, I need to explain this. So, like, anybody who's ever listened to Morbid Angel and then Gojira would just be like, fuck, all Gojira are doing are just fucking appropriating Morbid Angel riffs and making them palatable. But I will say, I think, in my opinion, they're the best gateway band out there. They're kind of like the new Slipknot.
Okay, yeah, I can
Not
see that.
sonically.
But they're better than Slipknot, so
They
it's
are
okay.
better than Slipknot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No offense.
definitely better than Slipknot.
Yeah.
But like, I think they're a far better gateway bands to getting people into more. Because the thing is, they blend a lot of different styles. And this album is a pretty good blend of all their previous albums, kind of amalgamated into one. It's not too heavy. It's got some of the accessibility of Magma, the 2016 album. It's got some of the more atmospheric elements from Les Enfants Sauvages. Probably didn't pronounce that properly.
That was actually pretty good.
Was that quite good? Oh yeah, you speak French, don't you?
No, I
kind of
don't.
I better not declare that publicly. Ever go Hellfest? They'd be like, Nina! C'est bon!
What accent is Floyd doing this week? It's fantastic. Yes, I only have I have enough French to say I don't speak French and to like vaguely be polite to people.
Was that Je n'ai pas... No.
Je ne parle pas français. I fucked it up now. I can usually do it really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Or Je suis désolé pour mon français.
Je suis désolé pour mon français.
That's sorry for my...
Merde.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I say. That seems to endear myself.
That's actually a pretty good way of doing it. That's quite a nice way. Yeah.
So I think this guy knows he's trash for not bothering to learn our language. Anyway, back to Gojira. Yeah, no, this is a really good album. It's got a track on it called Newfound, which has got a really cool, groovy riff. They've kind of done a bit of experimentation on this album. They've got one of the tracks. I forgot the name of it. I was thinking to myself, I could do this episode. This is why, without needing to make notes.
We both have
worry.
zero prep, so it's going to be a really efficient
It's
episode.
the one about the Amazon.
Cool.
Which I think is called Amazonia. There you go.
Nice.
That's all I needed to do. We just add 2 letters on at the end.
Yeah.
But no, that's got a bit of like an old school Sepultura kind of flavour to it. Like a bit of a strong groove. But it's a really good album. And I think, it's... I wanted to include an album that I think was somewhat mainstream to show that I'm not a total fucking arrogant hipster prick.
You don't have totally amazing taste, so
No.
yeah, you have some. I think Gojira is good. I think it's good to have bands that, it's not just people who are really elitist. Everyone that you start at. What am I trying to say here? I'm saying words out of my mouth. I think it's really good to have gateway bands. I think it's important that the scene is healthy. If everything was underground, then we wouldn't have enough money to enjoy the things that we do in the way that we do. So it's a good thing.
No, yeah, it's true. And in many ways, talking of Slipknot, they've done a great job of bringing in this new wave of gateway bands because they always have Gojira touring with them. Same with Behemoth. They're kind of at that stage now, I think, where they're kind of on the cusp of being one of the few sort of death metal bands to appeal to sort of a lot of casual metal fans.
Yeah, Nurgle Farage has done a great job of bringing in the new people.
Did you say Nurgle Farage?
I did. I wanted to see how you reacted.
It took me a while to process that. What do you think of that picture of him and Me and That Man, his side project in there?
I think they look really good, actually.
Oh, they look quite cool, isn't it?
I think that I really like the style. I want to be able to wear shirts like that. I think it's pretty cool, yeah. Do you want to hear what my number 10 is?
Go on, let's hear it.
It is Amon Ra, De Durn,
Yeah.
Fawn. I thought it was a really, sad and brutally depressing album, but in a really satisfying way. It was like honey that's poisonous, that's sweet but slowly killing you. The whole thing was just one of those albums where there's no tracks to me that stand out. The whole thing is just a full body of work that I really enjoy, just slapping on an evening with candles and pretending I'm Peter Steele. So yeah, I really like that album.
It's a great album.
It's a good one. It's not bad.
So good. It's my number 9.
Oh,
what a segue.
Damn.
But yeah, no, I really like the track. Funny enough, one of my favorite tracks from this album is the track Ogun Troost.
Nice.
Can't remember what the translation was that was
I'm not
for.
going to guess.
I looked it up at the time, but I've forgotten that I deleted my notes for that album when we reviewed it. But funny enough, that track is also used as the AEW wrestler Malachi Black, formerly known as Aleister Black of WWE. It's his entrance theme music.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool because it's
That's
back in
heavy.
the days of like WWE in the 90s during the Attitude Era. The WWE actually, talking of gateways, was a gateway for a lot of people to get into kind of heavy music
Definitely.
because they would feature a lot of it, like especially ECW as well.
I really liked it. I think it primed my ears for when I actively started searching for metal bands, because I remember being a kid and watching WWF, it was at the time.
Yeah.
The World Wildlife Fund.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed how like awesome the entrance music was, and I loved heavy guitars, but I just didn't know there was like a metal thing out there.
Yeah. It's, do you know what, I probably mentioned it on this podcast before, but there's so much crossover that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
To the point, if you showed me metal fans and indie wrestling fans, like just a panorama of a crowd of both those shows, I couldn't tell you which is which. The only way you could decipher them would be
The
just
Affliction
by
shirts.
the shirts.
Yeah.
And even then, like I do the same. If I go to a metal show, I'll wear a wrestling shirt, and then
Nice.
vice versa. You know,
That's a
just
good
say,
idea.
fuck the system. I'll wear what I want.
Well, you're part of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But no, I echo everything you've said about Ogun Troost. No, sorry, De Dawn. Ogun Troost is the track. Done that as well when we were talking about before we started filming.
Yeah.
But a great album. It's really kind of melancholic and kind of just packed to the brim with emotion and sorrow. And I think I remember at the time, I may have got this wrong, but I think quite a few members of the band had some close family member deaths
Oh no.
while recording the album. So I
Okay.
think that helped kind of fuel the absolute sorrow and despair that was eminent on the record.
It's very authentic, and I think it's a beautiful piece of art. So congratulations, Amon Ra. The Dawn is a fantastic album. So that was your number 9. My number 9 is Green Lungs Black Harvest. It was really difficult to rank this one. It came out quite recently, a few weeks ago, and it's bloody good. It's like really rock and roll. We were going to actually do an episode on it soon, and we will. So spoiler alert. But it's bloody fantastic. It's really catchy. I think Green Lung are doing some really great things for the doom scene at the moment. I love that they've gone with the whole like folk English history, but they've not made it racist.
Yeah.
They're not being like the black metal kind of folk English pure
Yeah.
heritage shit. I really enjoy it. The artwork is fantastic. The members are really wholesome. They've done some like wonderful merch, and all their previous releases have like really beautifully led up to this one. I think it's really great development. I'm so happy with this album. Yeah, like a bloody good album. It's really, I don't know if you've heard it. Have you listened to it?
I have. It's I think I listened to it first. It was like the last week of kind of sun we had before it started to get dark really early. And I thought it was just really kind of fitting because it had that really kind of summery kind of... I always like it when bands of this ilk are able to kind of harken back to that old sound of the 70s, but kind of modernize it and make it sound kind of fresh and vibrant still.
Totally.
And I think Green Lung do a really good job of doing that.
Yeah.
On this album, I haven't spent much time with their first album, so I need to go back and listen to that one a bit more. So I've had a lot of friends who have been raving about Green Lung for years.
They have a really dedicated fan base, and deservedly so.
They had a massive crowd at Bloodstock, and they sounded great. Like I didn't know any of the tracks because I wasn't overly familiar with them, but they sounded amazing at Bloodstock, and the crowd was feeling it.
Yeah, they're one of those bands that have worked really hard for their recognition. They're like fantastic live, really good visually. Like they represent themselves with their artistic direction, which is obviously from them, and it's autistic. Why did I?
Authentic.
What?
So I think it's not them who's autistic today. It's me. I meant to say authentic, but my mouth said autistic, and halfway through, I was like, wait, why am I saying this word? This isn't the right one. I'm really sorry. I meant to say authentic. It is authentic, unlike me. So yeah, Black Harvest, absolute banger. Yeah.
Right, my number 8 is Black Sheep Wall.
Ooh.
Songs for the Enamel Queen.
Okay.
Now, this was quite an interesting one for me because you guys introduced me to Black Sheep Wall. It's a name I'd heard before, and especially you guys always go on about the previous projects as well, right? Captain
Admiral Angry.
Admiral Angry.
Captain
I
Admiral.
knew there was some form of rank involved in there.
I like
See,
that.
This is what happens when we don't make notes when we do an episode.
I like it
Admiral
though.
Angry,
It's funny. Yeah.
And we had the pleasure of interviewing these guys, and they were such friendly guys. It
They're
was great.
so
And
good,
like, you
yeah.
know, for how friendly and affable they were, it's the music is a lot more kind of violent, aggressive, and just kind of despairing. But that's why I love it so much. One of the tracks on the album, Ren, is probably one of my favorite tracks of the year.
Wow.
I've literally been listening to that track almost once a day, depending on what I'm doing. So it's got a really cool, it's either a horn, I think it might be a French horn, or some form of brass instrument features in it. And it's just such a cool, interesting element to the music that just adds an extra level of kind of despair. Which I think is just it just works perfectly. But the whole album as a whole is just really great. I feel like it's probably their most complete work because I kind of just completely binged their discography and just tried to work my way through. And it was a lot to take in. So, and it's been great now since interviewing them and reviewing the album to have a bit more time to digest the music and see what the earlier albums had to offer. But the newest album was absolutely fantastic. I really like the artwork as well. It's quite cool.
Yeah, the artwork's always really interesting. I have this on my list. I don't know if I should just say the number. But yeah, I agree. It's a despair lasagna. That's how I think of it. There's just so many layers of despair, just dripping in sauce, which is just good riffs. I bloody love this band. I've been listening to them for years and years and years, and weirdly, they've influenced me a lot, but not in like a way you'd recognize. I just love the way the despair is communicated, mixed with like self-hatred and loathing and shame, and it's confessional, and they just don't care about hiding how they feel, and it's just really beautifully made.
I think the lyrics are great on that front as well. They're very honest and brutal lyrics, which I think is, you know, I don't remember us saying at the time, it's always a good contrast to like sometimes the overly poetic lyrics you find in the metal scene, which could come across a bit pretentious at times.
Like maybe it's pretentious.
Yeah.
It is pretentious. But
Yeah,
sometimes
that's just me trying to be diplomatic there.
I do like a bit of pretension at times, but I also do like the really no nonsense punch in the face that is a Black Sheep Wall lyric. Yes.
Nice. So what was your numero 8?
My 8 is Turnstile's Glow On.
Ooh.
Yes, I just love the wholesomeness of Turnstile. They just seem like really, really good people. I loved the vibe of the album. It was like a contrast to Black Sheep Wool. It was like really a breath of fresh air. It was like lavender on freshly washed bed sheets that you climb into after a long day and you know you're going to have a good sleep. It was just such a lovely, lovely album. And I loved like researching the band and finding out what like just lovely people they are. Yeah.
It's I found out the other day, and I keep meaning to check up on this because I was speaking to my friend John. He was telling me, just bear with me a second, that they actually split. They came from the ashes of 2 other bands.
Oh, right. There were like, what, 2...
Well, one of the bands, so it was Trapped Under Ice and Angel Dust. So
Okay.
2 other hardcore projects. And
Cool.
apparently they kind of disintegrated and Turnstile formed from the ashes of those 2 projects. So keep meaning to check those guys out. Those projects out. But I actually have Turnstile on my list as well, so I might as well get into that now. They were my number 6, so I'll skip over my number 6. But yeah, everything you said, just such an easy to listen to album. Like, talk to like gateway music again.
Yeah.
I was like spamming this album onto everyone, like even people that weren't fans of heavy music.
Yeah, it's a really good gateway band. Yeah.
I was even like Amy, I was like, listen to this, tell me what you think of this. Like, there's that one track, which I think is Underwater Boy. Which
It's really
got,
pop-like.
yeah, it's got like elements of that kind of like, I'd say like hip hop and stuff. And like, she was just like, yeah, that's a really good track.
Awesome.
And it's, I've just been really kind of heralding them as kind of like the saviors of kind of the more commercial side of the heavy scene. And I'm watching them. I'm seeing them in February.
Ooh.
They're playing at the Roundhouse, yeah.
Who's supporting them?
It hasn't been announced yet.
That's so cool.
You guys should look, see if there's still tickets.
Maybe
They were going to
will,
play, they're doing a show at the Forum, and I think they're going to play another show at the Roundhouse because they had sold a lot of tickets for the Forum.
I like the Roundhouse more than the Forum.
Yeah, I think that's why I was quite happy with the way that turned out because the Forum was sold out. But I'm like, I'd much prefer the Roundhouse as a venue. I've seen some great gigs at the Forum, but its sound can be a little bit hit or miss.
Yeah, I just like also that you can sit down in like a really nice way at the Roundhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like sitting
great
down.
venue.
Now I'm older, I'm really into sitting down.
It used to be an old train track, didn't it? I think that's.
Oh, is that where they used to turn the trains?
Yeah. It was one of the parts where the train kind of turns around and to go back the other way.
That's so cool. If it was Thomas the Tank Engine, like a train would have died and there would be like a train sepulcher. It would have gone and slaughtered the trains. And I love how dark Thomas the Tank Engine is.
Do you know what? Everyone was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine as a kid.
I
was fucking mad for him.
I just don't know what it is about the colours and the sounds. The do 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 do. Yeah.
Such a good theme song. And Ringo Starr narrating it.
What?
Yeah, Ringo Starr was the narrator of the TV series. Yeah.
That's amazing. I need to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, why not? I mean, when you've made as much money as you're ever going to need from the Beatles, I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'll narrate Pingu. If you like, there's no need for narration, but yeah.
Do you ever remember? Sorry, I'm not going to divulge too much here. Do you remember the Pingu episode where he got drunk and pissed on his floor?
Every single person I talk about Pingu. My favourite Pingu episode is where he has a nightmare and his bed, the legs grow really long and it starts walking and a giant seal appears above the ice. There's like looking down at Pingu as his bed is like do 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 and falls off a cliff or something like that. It's really dark.
Damn, that's intense.
Pingu's fantastic. Pingu was also one of my favourite TV shows. Top 10.
I saw a funny meme where it was like the subtitles and it was like the dad shouting at him and it just said shouting in Pingunese.
I love the meme where it's like Pingu crossing his arms. He's like, well, I'm not going to do that now. That's just how I feel when people ask me to do things I was going to do. Anyway, what are we on? We're number 7 now?
Where are we up to? That was your number 8.
We broke Sheb.
This is gonna start to sound like we're expediting at a restaurant. So that was my number 8. So Turnstile was your number 8. So we're on my number 7.
Okay. Yeah, what's your number 7?
Which is an album we haven't reviewed, but it's an album that left a bit of an impression on me because it was by far, in my humble opinion, the heaviest, most ridiculously, oppressively brutal that I've listened to this year. And it was an album called Sermon of Flames, the band called Sermon of Flames, and the album's called I Have Seen. No, I've written down the fucking album. So I Have Seen the Light, and it was repulsive.
Okay, that's the
I've
band
written
name.
Keywords. So I'm trying to keep my album titles to one line so I don't confuse myself. So I was like, okay, let me miss out keywords. I'll remember the album name when I'm reading it out. I Have Seen the Light, and it was repulsive.
Okay.
So they're an Irish band, and they're kind of like a blackened sort of death metal band. Insanely heavy, like a more aggressive Portal, if you can imagine that.
More aggressive
But
Portal.
like the music makes a lot more sense in Portal. Like it's a far.
I really want to
the riffs
listen
and
to
stuff
this.
are more discernible.
Okay.
I'd actually more compare them to Dragged into Sunlight
Okay, cool.
in terms of like as an audio comparison. But a great album. It's super super heavy. Like it's short enough that it doesn't give you a headache by the time you finish listening to it. But it's really scratches that super grimy subterranean itch.
Nice. I do. That itch when it hits, my God. You do need something to scratch it. Okay, so my number 7 is heavy in a different way. It's Lingua Ignota Sine Get Ready. She is obviously one of my favorite vocalists of all time. Her voice is just something else, and the videos that she's released this year and the singles really complement this album. I love the way she channels her. She's like the female Black Sheep Wool in a way. She just channels the rage and pain of women so beautifully, and she's like a bastion of kind of like education in a way, of like showing through music how it feels to get fucked up in a particular way that I think guys don't particularly understand, or non-females, non-women. Yeah, it's a bloody good album. It's heavy. Lingua Ignota is a true artist. She is experimental, always pushing boundaries and the envelope of what passes as music in an interesting and listenable way.
This is it's a more of a mournful kind of album as well. This one compared to Caligula.
It's a bit more pared back. I like that she's not just doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
That was a great album.
It was a good album. What's your number 7? You didn't have 7?
So we'll skip over my number 6, which was Turnstile.
Turnstile. So when your number.
So it's your number 6.
It's my number 6. This is so confusing. We've never done this. My number 6, ironically, like this episode, is called Big Mess.
Yeah.
It's by Danny Elfman. I thought this album was so interesting.
Yeah, this is a great album.
Yeah, Danny Elfman for me was always synonymous with like soundtracks. I'm pretty sure he did Night Before Christmas. And he did the Simpsons intro, which I used to play on the saxophone when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've always liked that element of him, but I never thought he could write a cool metal record, which is essentially, I think this is like experimental metal. It's brilliant. It's just so, it's not even a mess. It's just so complex, and it's like really eclectic. There's so much happening. It's perfect for ADHD. Oh my God, like the amount of he's so talented. Like it made me respect his work so much more. From being a classical and kind of film composer, he's gone on to like something that's just for your ears, and it is really full dimensional.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's because the thing is, I had no knowledge about Oingo Boingo, his first project.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like, I think to a lot of people who are familiar with that project, I think they listened to Big Mess and was just like, oh great, Danny Elfman's went back to doing like
his old stuff, yeah,
like contemporary music again. So, but like I had no clue. So it was like with you, it was just completely out of left field for me. I was like, oh, it's just the same Danny Elfman that done the, the Simpsons theme.
Yeah,
I think he done like the Spider-Man films as well.
Really,
Yeah.
he's done so much stuff. He's so prolific. It's really impressive. I love that he's like, some people would be so jaded after doing all that Hollywood stuff for decades, and now he's just doing his own thing. And like the cover is so visceral as well with the weird artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cover actually reminds me of this is a weird comparison, but that gore grind band Lymphatic Phlegm. They've got like a cover that's kind of like an anatomical kind of like dummy, and yeah, it's just really, but yeah, it's really cool. There's a track on this album called We Belong, and one thing I really like about this album is he almost seems to channel the voice of like a lot of major solo artists, like one of them being Leonard Cohen and another one being David Bowie. There's a time where he's very reminiscent of both. And I actually played the track We Belong for my mum, and I said, who sings this? And she was just like, oh, that's Leonard Cohen.
No
way.
way.
I was like, that's not Leonard Cohen. She was like, fuck, that I would have totally thought this was like a latter era Leonard Cohen song.
That's amazing.
So, but it was a great track, great album. I think it's was definitely not expecting to like it as much as I did.
Same. I thought it would just be like kind of a funny album to do, and now I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I hope there's more.
So my number 5 happens to be your number 1. So we're going to skip right over it and go to your number 5.
My number 5 is Black Sheep Wool, which you've already done. Songs for the Enamel Clean. Clean? What's wrong with me? I can't speak. I'm so upset right now. Shall we go to my number 4?
Yes.
We don't know what's going on. Okay. All right. I've got this. Number 4 is Cryptic Shift, Visitations from Enceladus.
Nice.
I thought this was an absolutely banging album. I was so blown away by how complex this album is and how it appeals to my literary side, which is quite rare in an album. I love how complex the lyrics are. It's so beautifully represented hard sci-fi, and you can hear the space in the music. It's just so chaotic but controlled, and it's really like the energy is like it's constantly driving. The first track is like 26 minutes long, which is incredible, and I love it. It's like you're landing on an old planet full of ancient weird aliens and shit, and that's right up my street. And the guys are also really good people too. I love them. So 10 out of 10, Cryptic Shift.
That was a great album. It's very rare that a tech death album can leave like a lasting impression, especially considering how kind of stale that genre is. And tenets of it. I was gutted that I missed the Damnation. I was going to watch them at the beginning, but I just couldn't make it.
It sucks. There's the old Damnation problem of the big queues in the rooms and things. But yeah, I hope I get to see these guys live soon. In fact, I just realized I'm wearing a Cryptic Shift hoodie right now.
Yeah, seen some live clips though. Like they look fantastic live.
Yeah.
I know they were touring the album. I think done a couple of gigs around here. Might have been the Boston Arms Music Room at some point.
Yeah, with Slime Lord.
With
Slime Lord, which is like part of half the band, right?
Oh, is it? Oh, didn't know.
Oh, they played some shows recently with Slime Lord, so I knew that is a thing.
We'll catch them at some point.
We will catch them. We will contain them and interview them and excrete their knowledge onto this podcast.
Right, my number 4 was another recent album we reviewed, which was 1914.
Nice.
Where Fear and Weapons Meet.
A good choice.
So if you want to hear fully what I've got to say about that album, you can always watch the review episode, but I'll try and sum it up succinctly in the way only I can. No, it was great, and it was a good continuation of their sound. They're one of the more recent bands who I think do a really good job of combining different elements of the metal subgenres. So there's a good there's a good amount of death, black, and doom in there, and they kind of conjure it all up in this melting pot of music, mainly focused on World War One, and this album is continuing that trend. And they're just really good storytellers as well. I think I think the vocals are great. I think he does a really good job of, I think Dim Tar, the vocalist, or Ditmar, sorry, does a really good job of narrating the stories and telling, which is often they're often like some of the tracks are even exact excerpts from like letters from certain soldiers and people that were involved in the terrible tragedy that was World War One. But we're not going to get into that again because
No, we've already got into it pretty deep.
Yeah,
I think it's a brilliant album. I agree with you there.
So that's why that album is ranked quite high. So great job there by those guys.
That is a fantastic choice. I think it was really hard for me to make this list. I think that was going to be like number 11 if I had to pick one. Like congrats to the guys for making that album. I love how thoroughly researched everything is. But this leads us to our top threes.
Yeah.
So
it always gets trickier when you get to the top threes, I find.
Yeah.
Because I reckon, to be honest, like when I do these sort of lists, these could change daily for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's your mood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very much like this is just what I was feeling at this exact moment in time. But the top three are very kind of malleable for me. Like they could swap very easily.
Yes, definitely. So this leads to my top three, which was an excruciatingly difficult choice. But my third album of the year is Carcass, Torn Arteries.
Nice.
It's just a bloody good album. It's Carcass doing their thing. They somehow just get better, which is crazy to me because a band that usually goes on for this long, they kind of rest on their laurels a bit. They chill out and they're too happy. They're happily married. Their lives are perfect. They've got all the money that they've got and they don't need to be good musicians anymore. It's not always the case, but I would have expected that from a band as prolific and extremely talented as Carcass, but instead they're just getting more extremely talented and making me question my choices as a musician at times. They're so good. I love this album. They're kind of having fun. The songs have silly puns as names and they're still heavy. Then they also have like Dance of Ixtab, which is such a cool concept for an album. She's like the goddess of suicide in like, you know, certain South American cultures. I love that. I love how they go from that to like Kelly's Meat Emporium and things like that. So yes, Carcass, top three, Torn Arteries, banging album.
Well, my number 3 was Carcass, Torn Arteries.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
No, yeah, you've done a very, very good job of summing that up there.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how good they still are this far on. Like they've never declined in quality. And there's, like, I'm not going to name any bands, but there are so many bands that have been going for as long as Carcass have, or even shorter, that have just don't have it in them anymore to produce anything that really sounds that inspired.
Yeah.
And that is not the case with Carcass. Like this album, I would say the Scythe's Remorseless Swing is one of the better Carcass songs across their entire discography.
It's true.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And it was great to see it live as well. They absolutely killed it at Damnation. And it was great to hear the new tracks as well as all the other stellar tracks from all their other albums. And they even played a few Swan Song tracks, which was cool because
Amazing.
I think that it's an album that is wrongly, kind of maligned by a lot of people, but it's a great album, and I don't think they've ever had a bad album.
Agreed.
And Torn Arteries is also another great album.
It is. It really is. And they're one of those bands that I know are consistently going to be incredible live. They've never let me down. They're always razor sharp, scalpel thin efficiency. That doesn't really make sense, but I was trying to run with the surgical steel there.
That sounds good.
I did my best. I made an attempt. Yeah, just bloody fantastic, which takes us to number 2. What's your number 2, Floyd?
My number 2 is Mare Cognitum,
Ooh.
Solar Paroxysm.
Nice. That was an incredible album.
And I had a lot to say about that album when we reviewed it.
Yeah.
But it's just insane how it's a one-man project. Because, one-man projects, more often than not, are shit. And it sounds like a one-man project.
Yeah.
Like Mare Cognitum, and also by extension, Spectral Law, who are a collaborator of Mare Cognitum, are great at creating music that kind of transcends the limitations of most one-man projects, and its sounds kind of transcends those limitations and becomes music that is wholly, wholly enjoyable. And this album has some of the better black metal riffs, or just riffs in general, I've heard in recent memory. And I just love this concept of a dying earth because it feels like it's so relevant to what's happening at the moment as well.
Yeah.
And And I think I'm not even gonna attempt to convince people that I'm as environmentally conscious as I can be, but I think it is something everybody kind of needs to open their eyes to a bit. And I think this is a great album, much in the same way that Cattle Decapitation's album, Death Atlas, had a similar-ish sort of message, even though Cattle Decap ended up saying, because they've got that track called Bring Back the Plague.
Oh, God, no!
before everything kind of went to shit, and they kind of apologized, saying, we weren't serious.
Oh, no. They did a
no.
Prince Philip.
Yeah. But, well, what a fantastic album. And
oh dear, it's a very good album. Yeah, Capital Decap aside, it's fantastic. Funnily enough, my number 2 is related to a degree to Mara Cognitum because it's Mistress. Empires Vanquished and Dismantled. It is a somewhat narcissistic number 2. Because I am on this album on one of the tracks, but it's one of the instrumental tracks, and I think the strongest points of this album are actually the black metal tracks because they're fucking huge. I really love how the guitars are layered. Honestly, like I was looking forward to this before I was even asked to be on it, and it was like a massive honor. So, thank you. And yeah, so it's a really bloody good album. I love the concept. It's like the concept of I've forgotten what they are. The Crusades.
Yeah.
I forgot what the Crusades were for a good 2 seconds there. Yeah, the concept of the Crusades, but through like the lens of the East as opposed to the West, which is how it's often depicted in Western music and art. So I really like that. The cover is sick. Unfortunately, the vinyl was delayed, but I'm going to get my hands on a vinyl because it's beautiful. And I think they're gold, which is always a plus. Yeah, it's a really fun album. I really love Ilos. His vision for this was amazing. Working with him was really cool. I got to work with an Iranian ney player, which was a really cool experience. So yeah, it's a narcissistic number 2, but mainly because I had such a wonderful experience on it. And I think it is genuinely an incredible album, and I recommend it thoroughly.
It's really nice and wholesome. Might even be covering it in the future.
Maybe. We might, yeah.
No, it's I've listened to it all the way through once, and it was fantastic. It was great. And I think it's the same guy that does Spectral Law.
Yep.
And this is another extension of his musical psyche, which I think is as good as anything Spectral Law I've ever put out.
Yeah.
So, a solid choice.
Thank you. So this brings us to the number 1.
Well, my number 1, which is not going to come as much of a surprise to some people, and this is my number 1 because I think this album is of a subgenre which to some and a lot of people has become quite stale and problematic to say the least. But my number 1 is Spectral Wound, A Diabolic Thirst.
That was a really good album.
Yeah. Do you know what? I put this down just to the sheer replayability. Amount of times I've just listened to this album all the way through because I just found it so easy to listen to. And it's been a very long time since I've heard a black metal album that kind of embodies a lot of the spirits and musical ideas of the second wave black metal scene and kind of bring it kicking and screaming with a modern kind of sound and production. It's just really easy to listen to, but like it's totally still sounds really frosty and icy, like how black metal should sound. And it's just without any of the other bullshit. Just a good album.
Exactly. That, ironically, taking away all that stupid, edgy bullshit makes it better.
Yeah.
Which is what some people improves the experience for other people, but it's not the case for me. I really like that. I love that the guy's a wine taster as well. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's the album cover's quite cool as well. It's dudes just fucking.
I love that album. I was really actually surprised by it. I thought I wasn't going to like it because I normally don't like that kind of thing. But it was great. It was really heavy. It was really groovy. It was just fun and sick in a good way. So I guess that leads to my number 1, which you may have noticed while listening to this podcast, there was no number 5 from Floyd because our number 1 and our number 5 are one and the same. It is Frontiera Oxidized. This album was so fucking heavy. It was like Black Sheep Wool on meth in a good way, responsibly a good way. The guys seem really lovely in Frontiera too, which is always a bonus. And it's just a fucking heavy album. It's I can't wait to see it live. I think they're playing Arctangent, which is something I'm very tempted to go to.
I'm very tempted to go to Octangent. That's a damn good lineup.
It's incredible. It's like Enslaved, Opeth, Frontiera, Pupil Slicer,
Cult of Luna?
Cult of Luna, Bell Witch.
Bell Witch, yeah.
And my photographic memory runs out there, basically.
Shall I bring it up quickly?
Do it. It's good.
Let's do
It's literally like our dream lineup in many ways.
I can't remember if it's Bell Witch with Aerial Ruin or if it's a Bell Witch.
It's definitely Bell Witch. It's their logo on it. Shem just bumped into a door.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
Of course, it's taken a sweet time to load up. No, Frontier Oxides. What a fantastic record! Like, it's just so dizzying and just absolutely just bombastic.
I've listened to it so many times, and it only came out recently, and it's perfectly kind of encapsulated the late end of year rage, and like it's an enjoyably angry album. It's the kind of album that gives you a little bump in spring in your step as you angrily walk to work. It's fantastic. I'm going to listen to this album for many years to come, and I cannot wait to see what they do next.
Yeah, I could see now why Katie was such a
huge fan.
Yeah,
from Pupil Slicer.
And their other stuff is really good as well, but this album is just it's all the weird kind of like frantic bleeps and sounds and noise. Yeah. Shout out, great band.
Yeah.
But just the it's just really chaotic, but totally still like coherent enough to enjoy.
Absolutely.
Like great choice for number one. It's got the Octangent line up there. Well, easy for me to say. Octangent, I think I almost said.
I can't even say it.
Nice.
We're both hungry and tired. We can't say words.
You got Opeth, Cult of Luna, Tesseract, Xehanort, Mono, Amin-Ra.
Nice.
That'd be cool to watch them. Leprous. No. Enslaved, one of the best bands of all time.
Yep.
Ranzi Pazuzu are playing.
Nice.
Oathbreaker.
Nice.
Who are another member of the Church of Ra collective.
Oh, yeah.
With Amin-Ra. Who else have we got? We got Bell Witch, Frontiera are there, as you mentioned. That looks like the Imperial Triumphant logo.
I think it is, yeah.
Joe Quayle's there. Yeah. Oh, Ern are playing as well. I seem to always be watching Ern play. They're great though. No, good lineup. I'm tempted by that.
I think we're probably going to end up going.
Yeah.
I have a inkling of
It's like a week after. It's like the week after Bloodstock, right? No.
Yes.
Ah, fuck it, I'll do it. Why not?
Why not? So I think that leaves us with a fully fleshed out top 10 of 2021.
Some good lists, I must say.
It's not bad.
I think you've got a damn good list.
You too. What wonderful taste we have. And many of these bands you can actually hear us review in depth if you go back through our Serpent Temple back catalogue, beginning in around January. So you'll be able to find out more of our detailed research about all of these bands and albums and people. And we do actually interview Katie from Pupil Slicer, which wasn't on this list. Oops.
Yeah, that was a great album.
It was a good album. I think that deserves a special mention, actually, because that is one of the best albums of the year as well. We just had too much to choose from.
But let's be honest, there is enough people out there touting that.
They're going to make that
album.
That's going to be a number one for many people.
Yeah, I mean that album is without a doubt amazing, 100%. And there's going to be as you say, that album's going to feature on a lot of people in journalists' end of year list.
Yeah,
definitely Gavin from Damnation, that's for sure.
Yeah, literally all the festivals. So well deservedly. So shout out to Katie and Pupil Slicer. That is a top 10 album for many, and it's in our top 10 as well in spirit in a way. Who else? We talked about Sheep Wall as well. So you can listen to our interview. You mentioned that earlier. Yeah,
there's a few albums that have been dropped this week as well. Like Swallow the Sun. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to them much. A bit of a Swallow the Sun fan. They had that album out in, when was it? I want to say 2014. It was a triple album.
Damn.
So it was like, the third album was like a Funeral Doom one, and the first two were kind of like their kind of blend of melodic, kind of doomy Black Death. But it's, so they've dropped an album. Exodus was an album dropped. I'm a thrash fan, personally. So I might check that out. Even though Testament are my favourite of the... I've said this before. I know you didn't like them when you saw them live. I keep forgetting every time. So my absolute favourite are Dark Angel, who are a great thrash band. They're like Slayer, but even faster and heavier.
That just makes me think of an Akakoka Clean section. Yeah. I think it was at Go Unspoken, D's at Go Undone, who's like, Dark Angel!
Why did you draw in here?
Yeah,
it's Son of the Morning.
Of course it's Son of the Morning.
No, he says Stray Angel.
Straight Angel. I just think of, I just imagine Dark Angel. Like, Dark Angel of my dark desires is that kind of like DM Instagram message that you get.
I think that was the first track they played on their first gig back. I can't remember if Bloodstock or their Camden Underwood show
I think
was
it was.
back.
I think they did. Yeah, I remember losing my mind.
Yeah.
I think that's where I met Shem as well, actually.
Yeah.
They also have a song called My Apterous Angel.
They do. It's a very good song. Yes, I think it's very. Yeah.
But I think for some, the end of the year isn't over because there seems to be a lot of big bands dropping a lot of albums. So
There
who knows?
will be. This list could change. But I don't know how we will, if we will do another top 10 episode. Please let us know if you think we should. Maybe we do like a top 3 or a top 5.
We'll do a December top 10, okay? Top 10 albums.
The top 10 every month.
The top 10 albums of the third week of December. We'll do some really specific lists for everybody.
Well, remember, they dropped, Behemoth dropped The Satanist like near the end of the year, right? That came out in December.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Because everyone got really pissed off. So, fuck! That's like, that was like their end of year album. Or was it at the beginning of the year? Am I talking absolute balls?
I
actually
don't know.
Can't remember.
I'm
It was
not.
either at the beginning or the end. I want to say it was at the end because I remember it just came in and just stole most people's.
I'm not a
top slot
Behemoth
positions.
expert. I only.
I seem to remember it being towards the end of the year. You searching up, Chef?
3rd of February 2014.
There you go. We like to research things at Serpent Temple.
Yeah.
We're a well
I don't know how I
researched.
got that so wrong. Literally the other end of the year. Amazing.
It's the wrong end of the year. It
There you
happens
go.
to everybody.
There you fucking go.
It's all falling apart. Someone called Danny Elfman. His next
big
album is
mess.
going to be
Big mess.
a Serpent Temple podcast I can't fucking speak. Concept. That's what I'm trying to say. Shem is holding his face in his hands because he knows that this is going to be a bitch to edit. It's so funny. You're welcome. Enjoy editing this. And thank you so much for listening and putting up with us for this extremely unusual episode. I hope it wasn't cruel as well. But please tell us your top 10 albums of the year. We'd love to hear from you as well. And from me and Floyd, thank you so much.
Until next time.